Hey, this is True Scams, a channel where we investigate financial fraud and scam stories. We're going to look at some of the craziest Airbnb scams from Reddit. I'll read through what happened and we'll see how to avoid them. Even if you think it'll never happen to you, it's still good to see how these scams take place. Let's get into our first story. This one was posted by Tony Danzer. I've been staying in Airbnbs for 8-ish years now, and I'm lucky to only have one nightmare story from recently. I booked an Airbnb in a major Canadian city for me and 3 friends. It was a private suite kind of deal in a large house that seemed to be all suites being rented out, but not all by the same host. In advance of the trip, the host was friendly and responsive. She wasn't going to be there at check-in, but left instructions that seemed straightforward enough. Get the key out of a lockbox outside the building, and the unit is inside. Sure, no problem. We'd originally asked about an early check-in, but it wasn't possible because cleaners were going to be there, so we said, no problem, and just took our bags around with us. We arrived about an hour after the earliest check-in time. We got the keys from the lockbox without a problem and got into the house, no problem. And then we couldn't find the unit number. Between the 5 of us, another friend was with us to hang out, but not spending the night. Walking around the entire place, we knocked on doors and trying our key in every single lock. We could not find our unit at all. I was frantically messaging the host during this time, but got no response. She didn't leave her phone number, so I got in touch with Airbnb support. They had a number for her and tried to call several times, but also no response. While I was on the phone, my friends continued walking around the entire property, even trying to see if they could recognize the windows in the listing from the outside by the curtains. Eventually, I told the support people I wanted to cancel, but they initially gave me a hard time because I was already checked in. I told them no, I couldn't have checked into a unit I couldn't find. It took another hour of being bounced around between agents and explaining the situation over and over while they waited for a response from the owner. They also said they had a policy to give her a certain amount of time to respond before they could move forward with the cancellation. Finally, they canceled the reservation and processed my refund, and we were left to stay in a hotel after checking and finding that no other Airbnbs in the area were even remotely in our price range. Support didn't offer to help us find a new place, and I didn't know that I could ask them. A few hours later, I got bombarded with angry messages from the host saying that I was rude and awful and that there was no problem with her unit and I was making up stories. I didn't reply. Fast forward a week. I got an email that she left a review for me because I was technically checked in for all of 3 hours. It was still processed that I'd stayed there, so we could leave reviews for each other. I contacted support again and again had to re-explain the situation. They tried to tell me that she was allowed to leave a review because I had stayed there. I told them no, they needed to review the notes of what happened. The reservation was canceled because I couldn't find it to check in. They sent me the text of her review. She said that I came to the unit, used the shower, left a huge mess, and then lied about not being able to get in so I could cancel the reservation. I told them again to review my side of what had happened. Finally, they did, and they removed her pending review. I never left one for her, and I still wonder where that unit was because 5 people, plus some strangers in another unit, couldn't find it within 2 hours of searching. Yeah, that is a tough situation. This one, it just sounds like a nightmare story. Maybe there was no scam. Maybe it was just a bad host. But this has all the signs of a common Airbnb scam where they make it the host makes it difficult to find, or they make it hard to check in. Maybe they have some problem with you as a tenant and they stretch that out and they can use it to keep your entire payment or even add a fee. So I've just noticed, especially with myself or my friends as we book Airbnbs, there's a lot more documentation going on. Like make sure that you take pictures of everything, you message them through the app. Even if you're in the right, it could still be a tough situation. And I hear even a lot of people are just kind of going back to using traditional hotels and hostels and just avoiding Airbnb because we're starting to see it's not really what it used to be when it first came out. Let's get into our next story. This one is posted by Dependent Address 448 from the perspective of a host. Here's a nightmare for you. Make sure you purchase a property in an area that wants you to live there. I live in a historic area near downtown. We have yards, oak trees covering the streets, kids play outside, etc. It's a beautiful, old-fashioned neighborhood in the middle of the city. And the reason that it's this way is because we work hard to keep it. From keeping homeless people out, to blocking city trucks, to trying to cut some of the oak trees down, to a 17-year-long legal battle over a speed bump that the city installed that we didn't want. The area is extremely desirable. Between 2018 to present, investors bought 91 houses in about a 10 by 10 block area. Now there's constant traffic, cars parking everywhere, rude guests, noise, constant ruckus, checking in, checking out, all hours of the night. Airbnbs being rented to work crews, people showing up with barking dogs, etc. All this was not acceptable. As for me, I own a couple long-term rentals in the neighborhood. I have tenants, families who've been there for 5 years each, that said they no longer feel safe here because of constant strangers coming and going. Think about it. 91 houses. That's 4 to 12 new people every day per house flooding our neighborhood, being around our kids, being around our property. We told these new owners that their hotels were not welcome here. You're welcome to move in and join the community, become a neighbor, maybe make it a long-term rental or just sell the property. But we don't feel welcome with all these constant Airbnbs. We got the typical response. It's my property, screw you, etc. We filed zoning complaints, building complaints. So we've had several hearings over a couple years. I pulled a few of the owners aside after one of the hearings and I said, look, I'm not sure how to word this, but it's in your own best interest just to open your Airbnbs in another part of town. They may complain, but eventually they'll give up and leave you alone. We will not leave you alone. Most took it as advice, but one loudmouth Airbnb owner started with the whole, you can't threaten me, wait till I tell my husband, you'll be sorry. We didn't get anywhere with the city, so the lawsuit started. On my block alone, I filed 3 lawsuits against Airbnb owners and 2 lawsuits against the real estate agents that were about to close deal to sell 2 more houses on my block to these investors. Several other neighbors have done the same. None of the lawsuits are based on whether or not they're allowed in the city. We dug deep. The goal was so many filings and so many lawsuits and so many discovery demands that they'll go bankrupt just trying to cover their attorney fees. To date, we have one holdout. He's ignored all the letters from us and the courts, so in a few days we're filing for the court to compel a default judgment. We think then we'll have won. All the considerates who decided to open Airbnbs in our neighborhood didn't care that they destroyed a community will be gone. To date, I have no idea what the total is that everyone spent on legal fees getting rid of these people who opened Airbnbs in our beautiful community, but it was worth it. All right, yeah, this one's another interesting story. So not so much a scam on this one, but it is interesting to hear kind of what's the side from the Airbnb hosts. And I know that this is happening in my city as well, where they're going to start to crack down on all these investors coming in. They'll buy up a house in cash and they'll flip it to be an Airbnb property. Not only is it bad for people that are shopping for a house to actually live in, but it's bad just to have that constant traffic. I feel like, a neighborhood could support maybe 1 or 2, maybe 3 Airbnbs, but there just seems to be a high level of greed around here, especially where I live at. What's it like in your city? Do you have a problem with Airbnbs? Let us know in the comments. Let's get into our next story. This one is posted by BobC4764. I just experienced an Airbnb nightmare. I went to the place that I'd rented a room in and discovered there's no home and no building at the address I was given. I tried texting the host and I got no response. A call to the same number produced a message from the phone system that said his phone was disconnected. That experience was bad enough, but the real nightmare was the many subsequent and failed attempts to get support from Airbnb. I called Airbnb customer service at least 8 times and I got hung up on every single time. But not before being asked to tap a link in a text message, which never worked. Finally, I used my friend's phone and I got through to a rep who put me on hold for another 15 minutes. The rep never returned the call and then got disconnected. On a subsequent call, I was connected to a rep whose English was so poor I couldn't understand anything he said. It was so useless. He wanted to connect me to another rep, but I begged him not to put me on hold. He claimed the only way that he could contact another rep without putting me on hold. Eventually, I got connected to a higher level rep. That rep was also virtually impossible to understand. There was so much echo in the audio that I had to have her repeat everything that she said 3 times. This echo rep told me she would have to hang up the call to contact the host. I tried multiple times to explain to her that the host did not exist and this property was not real. She promised me 2 things: that she would call me back and that I wouldn't end up sleeping on the street. She never called back, and were it not for my booking a hotel 50 miles away, I would have had to sleep on the street. Note that this all took place at a college football game, and the nearest available hotel room was 50 miles away at double the normal price. Several hours later, I got a message on the Airbnb platform from the supposed Airbnb host, who I suspect is somewhere out of country. His message gave directions that didn't make sense, and it didn't seem to relate to the location I was given. I later returned to the location and I found the same thing. The address doesn't exist and the directions don't make sense. But by then I knew I would be staying with this host even if I'd found a building there. His failure to respond to my text, the discontinued phone, and Airbnb's failure to provide support told me not to trust this supposed host. The extraordinary failure of Airbnb to provide support for my situation also told me not to trust or do business with the company ever again. I hope I can convince others to stay away from them too. I know my friends who were with me at the game will never go near Airbnb again after witnessing this nightmare. The company's failure to support me certainly ruined my experience. I'm sure it ruined my friend's day too. Later on, around 2 a.m. the next morning, I got another message from Airbnb support explaining they would take no responsibility for the failure and they would leave it up to the host to decide if I would get a refund. In other words, they were going to support the host and not me. After that, I got another message from Airbnb that their host had decided to refund half of my payment account. As for me, I'm done trying to get support from Airbnb, and I'm done doing business with the company. Going forward, I intend to work with consumer advocacy organizations, the news media, social media, and if possible, attorneys to hold Airbnb accountable, and I want to warn the public away from the company. I hope no one else ends up sleeping on the street. Yeah, so this one just sounds kind of a similar vein as our previous story. Another unsatisfied customer getting the runaround from Airbnb support. It seems like when there's a problem, you can't get a hold of them, and they just take the side of the other party, or they just want to keep texting you codes and handing you off to overseas call centers. So we do see this happening a lot. I think we're going to see more and more people switch back to traditional hotels where you don't have to worry about all this stuff and the cleaning fees and all the hidden fees and all that. But what do you think? Do you have an Airbnb story for us? What do you think about these stories? Let us know in the comments below, and stay safe out there.